I'm very clear Brexit does mean Brexit. As he says, we will make a success of it.
One question on everybody's mind is, what is the negotiating strategy of the new British government towards the European Union? And how does the trio of Brexiters, Boris Johnson, Liam Fox and David Davis, how do they get on? How do they forge a common position? Janan Ganesh, what's your answer?
With immense difficulty. There is no agreement as yet about the exact model of exit to aim for, whether we should have some access to the single market or aim to be entirely outside, what kind of trade deals we should be negotiating first and our chances of succeeding in those trade deals. And all of this was supposed to be worked out this summer because there was going to be a prolonged leadership contest in the Tory party to find a new Prime Minister, and you could thrash out these ideas. And what ended up happening with amazing efficiency was Theresa May getting the job very early on in a coronation, which meant the debate never happened, and you've got a lot of intellectual disagreement and confusion about the plan for Brexit. On top of that, you have some personality differences.
We're going to come to those personalities in a minute, but the trade-off was we get certainty in the form of a new British government, but uncertainty regarding what the overall negotiating position is and what the fundamental question of what kind of relationship we want. Now, Liam Fox scoots off to the United States, suddenly makes some pronouncements on trade policy.
Yeah, and he's been scooting off into Canada as well in a few weeks before that. Incredibly diligent and active new trade secretary, wants to cultivate...
Long-time Eurosceptic.
Historic Eurosceptic going back decades in the Tory party, former candidate for the leadership. And he wants to start initiating trade deals as soon as possible. That implies some breach of existing EU law and policy, which means that the UK is bound until we formally leave the European Union.
Yeah, he can't negotiate because until we divorce from the EU, we have legal commitments.
Legally, he cannot do that. There is an argument from people in the Eurosceptic side of the argument that what would the EU do if we started at least striking informal deals or preliminary negotiations internationally? Are they really going to punish us? Are they going to financially sanction us? What they could do, of course, is drive an even harder bargain in the Article 50 talks about our extrication than they were going to do anyway.
Right.
But
that's important because the Article 50 negotiations, we're going to probably wait at least 6 months before pulling that or pressing that trigger.
Yeah.
But David Davis is the Brexit minister, and this week we heard that Michel Barnier, scourge of the city, the French commissioner, is going to be leading the Article 50 talks. Is David Davis going to be the counterpart?
This is about the victory of an idea.
It looks like it's going to be Davis versus Barnier, and the British press, most of the British press have interpreted that appointment of Barnier as a hostile act, almost a declaration of war, as some have described, because he was so inimical to the city as a European Commissioner.
Heavy regulation man.
Yeah, I wonder whether things are a bit more complicated than that. And by the end of his time in that portfolio, he ended up developing a pragmatic working relationship with the city. In French terms, he's not a far left-winger at all. And therefore, the real threat to Britain from Barnier is not his ideology, but his technical competence. He's really across the brief, especially the financial services.
David Davis a man of detail?
All I'll say is that he hasn't done an executive job in politics since the mid-1990s when he was Minister for Europe. He was a very good select committee chair, effective shadow Home Secretary, but in terms of mastering an insanely complex brief, there's been no real preparation in his career since the mid-1990s.
Right, so where does Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, fit into this picture? The man who is larger than life.
On Europe, clearly we have to give effect to the will of the people in the referendum, but that does not mean, in any sense, leaving Europe.
Yeah, and people are really worried about Boris Johnson being Foreign Secretary. I think this is the least problematic of all those three appointments, partly because he's a cleverer guy than you might think from the bumbling exterior, although I think we've realised that by now, but also because the Foreign Office, and some see it as a tragedy, is now a much diminished office compared to a decade ago. And really, the fact that
civil servants have gone over to the Brexit ministry headed by Davis.
Because it's the most important foreign policy project of the next 5 years. And so it's almost a ceremonial job. I'm sure he'll try, Boris, to make it something larger, but it could just be a ceremonial office, and really it's Davis and Fox that we need to look out for.
Janan, prediction time. Will the Three Musketeers still be in situ in 18 months' time.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if one of them storms off in a huff once they realise how tough this negotiation is going to be.
Thank you very much, Janan Ganesh.
Thank you.